9 of the set of books that I got. 70-year-old books, still in pretty good condition, and not been opened in 50 years, maybe longer. Um, we are at part 3, story 4, Promise to a Thief. Okay? Uh, okay. It says, 3 crosses, not one, were raised on Calvary's Hill that dreadful day. 2 thieves were crucified with Jesus, one on his right and the other on his left. Who were or where they were born or what wrong they had done, we don't know. The Bible doesn't even mention their names. They were just 2 poor, very miserable men suffering and dying with the Son of God. How old they were, we don't know that either. Most likely they were no older than Jesus, and he was only 33. They may have been much younger. Today, such wrongdoers would be put in a reform school. Yeah, uh, this 70 years ago. In these days, they were crucified. So different are the times in which we live, thanks to the man on the middle cross. I like to think that those 2 thieves as just 2 boys who went wrong, boys whose mothers loved them and had high hopes for them, and were broken-hearted when they began to lie and steal. There must have been a moment in their lives of both of them when they left the path of goodness and and started on the road that led them to dishonor and death. It may have been when they were with ba- talking with bad company, or when they first tempted to steal. But whenever it was, that word, that deed, that evil thought was the beginning of their wrongdoings and all their sorrows. Step by step, maybe very slowly at first, they plunged deeper and deeper into sin. Though, no doubt, brought up to believe in the 10 Commandments, they forgot all about them. Though they knew perfectly well that God had said, "Thou shalt not steal," they stole right and left. Then came arrest and the sentence of death. Finally, the dreaded moment came. Carrying their crosses, the prisoners were led to the place of execution. Perhaps they were surprised to see another cross raised between theirs. Certainly, and then and they weren't scourged. And then there's a illustration down here. And if it was correct, the scourging would be correct, he'd be in a brown or red. But of course, these books are made for children, little ones. Okay, and back to the story. Certainly, they were amazed when they saw who was crucified there. They knew Jesus well. They heard much about him. Now, in their awful agony, they looked at him, wondering. Naked, his hands and feet nailed to the wooden beams, his face drawn and haggard, with blood still running down his forehead from the crown of thorns. Jesus did not look like one who could help them, yet there was a majesty in his bearing even on the cross. Then one of the malefactors, which were hanging railed on him, saying, For thou be Christ, save thyself and us. This was not a plea for help, it was a taunt, and a most unkind one at, at such a moment. This thief had no faith that the man in the middle of on the middle cross was the Son of God. He was merely mocking him, repeating the words of the sneering priest below. Then something beautiful happened. The one gracious deed that lightened the awful darkness and misery of the crucifixion scene. Turning on the first thief, the second rebuked him, saying, Don't thou not fear God, seeing that thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justified, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. Now the heart of Jesus must have thrilled as he heard these words and knew that he had one champion left. Not of his disciples, most of his disciples had forsaken him and fled, despite all he had done for the multitudes, healing the sick and raising the dead. And it's a Russell Harlan. It's got his name up, signed up at the top, and it's a top painting. You see, that's the thief that's, taunting him. And then the other one's right here. Actually, we don't know which thief was the one that did the taunting and which was the thief that is promised the paradise. And, we don't know. Okay. Healing the sick and raising the dead. It looked just then as though he hadn't a friend left. Day after day, night after night, he had poured out his love for the needy and the sorry, but now all his labors seems to have been in vain. Nobody loved him. Nobody, that is, except, oh, wonder of wonders, this dying thief. Oh, sorry. I got my foot stuck. Okay. Though racked with pain, this poor sinner would not let any unkind, unjust word be said about him. He was willing to admit his own sins, but would not let anyone accuse the innocent teacher of Galilee. Then it was that the repentant thief said, Lord, remember me when thou comest to thy kingdom. Again, the heart of Jesus was deeply touched. Why, this poor thief not only believed that he was innocent, he believed that he was a king, and and that beyond this dreadful death on the cross, he would have a kingdom and life everlasting. In his simple way, this thief had more true faith in Jesus and his mission than all his disciples put together. If ever there was a man truly sorry for his sins, the and sincerely longing to be a child of God, it was this poor dying thief. Surely no one ever was more deserving of a place in his kingdom. No wonder Jesus said to him, Verily I say unto you, thee unto thee this day, with me shall thou be in paradise. This promise was this promise to the repentant thief is one of the most precious in all the Bible. Today, Jesus said, in other words, today, this darkest of days, when my cause seems lost, when most of my friends have left me, and my enemies have crucified me, today I tell you, victory is mine, and you shall have part in it. The future is mine, and you shall share it with me. Jesus did not, as so some think, tell the poor thief that he would be in paradise that very day. He could have he could have he could not have meant that, for he did not go to paradise himself that day. 3 days later, after his resurrection, he said to Mary, I am not yet ascended to my Father. No, when Jesus spoke that precious promise to the dying thief, he was looking into the future, in the day of his final triumph, when all who love him and are faithful to him will be gathered unto his kingdom. Okay, well, sounds robot-y anyway. Okay. Lord, remember me, said the dying thief. Will Jesus remember him? Indeed, he will. Though 1,000,000,000 years should pass, Jesus, Jesus could not forget this man who stood by him in the dark and bitter, on that dark and bitter day. If there is one person who absolutely sure of a place in paradise, it is the convicted thief who, in his dying moments, turned to Jesus with all his heart, reaching out by faith from cross to cross, and in reaching one heaven for himself. And then it has um, got a Harlow? Oh, Russ Harlan, yeah. And a little Russ Harlan illustration down at the bottom. There's the Russ Harlan. And that is the end of part 3, story 4. So I'm going to take the break and we'll be back um, whenever. See you in a little while.